Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the transfer window review, where we're going to be looking back on a very hectic transfer window and looking through all the signings that we've made this window. Terry is joining me for this one. We're going to be looking back on it was a very eventful window, a lot more eventful than a lot of us were expecting at first, I think. But yeah, and nonetheless, I think we've had far worse windows, whatever way you look at it. We'll go right back to the start of the 1st of July. Obviously, it got off to a bad start. Richarlison left. We'll obviously discuss the outgoings as well in this show, but mainly focusing on the players we have brought in. Richarlison left. First signing of the summer, of course, was the free transfer, James Tarkowski. So we're going to be rating all of these signings out of 10. We'll start with James Tarkowski. What would you be rating Tarkowski as a signing out of 10?
10. I mean, free transfer, a player who was widely tipped to cost 30 million the summer before, and exactly what we needed. You say, oh, 10 out of 10, that's extreme. In terms of the transfer, I don't think so. I think he's had a huge impact on the team, on the rest of the players, and to get a player of that caliber for nothing, I don't see how you can take anything away from that transfer. So that one's a 10 out of 10 for me.
So we're gonna have a lot of we're gonna have to do a lot to make up for that one, aren't we? Because that's the first one, probably the best one already out the way. But
Maybe
straight on
more.
to straight on to the next one. I think we went a while after this without signing a player, and this is when the everyone's nerves started to jangle a little bit because we hadn't really done any business at this point. Richie had gone, and Tarkowski was the only signing for a while. Then obviously we played a couple of friendlies with, safe to say, mixed results, and it was all starting to get a little bit tetchy, and I think the TV money came in, didn't it? And obviously we must have suddenly found, or the Arteta money was found down the back of the couch or something, and we started to bring a couple of players in. So the next signing after that was Dwight Mcneil, who came in for, I think we paid about 5 million up front. It's going to rise to about 18, 20 million. Um, yeah, Dwight McNeil, where would you rate that one?
That for me is a 7 out of 10. I really like Dwight McNeil. I know a lot of people don't and don't think he was worth buying, or think he was a waste of money. But I personally think he's a good young player. He's got good technical ability. I think he might need a little bit of time to settle in at Everton. He's been very subdued so far, hasn't he, in his early performances? But I think it'll be. I think just when you said about the sale of Richarlison, I think the club probably took a view that when they sold Richarlison, when they did, that it was necessary, it was needed for the books and the financial health of the club, but they also needed to use that money to address a lot of the issues across the whole squad, not just a like-for-like replacement for Richarlison, because we'd have to spend more or less that money again to get a replacement who's like Richarlison. That was the point, and that's more. It's close to what we paid for Richarlison when you think about it. 40 million or whatever it was. The will have looked at the stats and decided, right, we can't replace Richarlison like for like and do some of the other business that we want to do. So I think what they've done is across two players, they've looked to replace Richarlison's role in the team. His defensive contribution, which was not unsubstantial for Richarlison, and will be replaced by Dwight Mcneil, although I think he will eventually get better going forward as well. And then the offensive contribution will be Neil Maupay. So I think Maupay and McNeil are together the Richarlison replacement. Whether that works, whether that's a good idea, or whether he needs replacing more substantially down the line, is yet to be seen. But I am not against the White McNeil sign, and I'm happy with him.
Yeah, I think I would go with a 7 myself. It's very. I think I've seen positives and I've seen not so positives. But I think I've seen more positives than negatives, is what I will say.
Yeah, I think some of the other signings like Tarkowski and whatever have settled in very quickly, but they're a lot older than Dwight Mcneil. Like because he's been around so long, it's easy to forget he's like 22. He's a young player, and he will have a lot to offer the team, especially in that area of the pitch. If you look at our squad now after the transfer window, we're quite stacked in central areas further back in the pitch, but the places we're most light on a bit on numbers and on different levels of quality is the front three. So we've got three wide players. If you don't include Townsend, who won't be fit until the new year, you've got Anthony Gordon, Tamari Gray, and Dwight McNeil. So McNeil will see a lot of games, between now and the end of the season. So I think he will have a big role to play as the season goes on. He's just not, come in and set the world alight straight away. But I don't even think he's been bad straight away. He just hasn't, come in and scored a bag full of goals yet. But we'll see.
No, I definitely think it's a solid 6, 7 out of 10 sign, and I think it's not going to blow anyone's mind, but he's done pretty decent so far, I think.
I understand people who didn't want him and thought we could have got better. I can't say we couldn't have, but I like him. I always have. Yeah, quite liked him, and hopefully I'm proved right down the line. But if I'm not, I'm not. So we'll see. But I'm giving that one a 7. I think most people will probably go 5 or 6, but I think that is probably a little bit informed on their opinion of him before he signed. I don't think he's been bad so far. Even if he hasn't been spectacular, I think he'll come good personally.
And next up, then obviously Ruben Vinagre, left wing back, left back, whatever you want to call him, in on loan from not Wolves, actually, he's from Sporting Lisbon. He was previously a Wolves player, wasn't he?
Yeah, he signed for Sporting Lisbon this summer, but he was loaned by Wolves, and if he met a certain amount of made a certain amount of appearances for Sporting, they were obliged to buy him. So they bought him this summer and then loaned him straight back out. So I did raise an eyebrow at that, going, is there something wrong here? Why do they they've bought
Similar
him, but
to Moise Keane, isn't it? With us, like as of you, like the way they have seemed to be pretty desperate to shift him as soon as he's gone from
yeah,
us.
sort of, yeah, but at the minute it's like he's cover for left back and he's on loan with no obligation to buy. I don't really think you can get too excited by him. I think obviously the club looked and said, well, Niels and Kunku isn't at the required level to be a Premier League left back, and we've got a first choice left back we've just spent good fee on, which is a Vitaly Michalenko, young player, and plus at the time, and I'm sure we will again in the season, we were playing 3 at the back with 2 wing backs, and that's a system he's very familiar with. Just an inexpensive, cover position. So 6 out of 10, not good or bad. He is
Yeah,
what he is. Anything you get out of him is a bonus. Let's be honest.
yeah, precisely that. It's a 6 out of 10. No, no, nothing brilliant or terrible about it. But what I will say is good is that we're actually having that conversation about someone being ready to step in as cover in a position where, for once, it feels like we've actually got a lot of cover in a lot of positions, which is very rare with Everton.
Mm, I wouldn't. There's a difference between cover and good cover. I think once we've done all the ratings, we'll talk about the squad as a whole. But some areas we've got good cover, and there's still some areas we quite like. But we do look in much better shape than we did last season for sure, cover wise.
No doubt about that. I think it's hard to get a lot worse than what we had last year. But after Vinagre, another loan, another one directly from Wolves, obviously Conor Cody. I think he was pretty much brought in because Mina and Godfrey got injured in the Chelsea game. It was like a pretty immediate response to those injuries on the opening day. In 2 days of that, we brought Cody in on loan, and he settled well, hasn't he?
Yeah, like Tarkowski. He's another 10 out of 10 for me. A loan signing of a player with that level of experience, that level of ability, and that level of influence and impact since he's come in. He's a proper leader, a proper strong voice in the defence and in the squad overall. It's an absolute gift from Wolves. Like, shows how highly they think of Cody, that they've let him go on a sweetheart deal to Everton. Where, like, yeah, you can loan him, and then there's an option to buy next summer for £14 million. Okay, he's a little bit older, but he's not like ancient. He's 29, he'll be 30 by the time, next summer rolls around. But 14 million, centre-backs can go till they're 34. That's not a lot of money at all. And he's made himself indispensable in a back three. I was one of those people who thought, yeah, he's not going to be available to play in a back four. Bringing him in was committing to the back three. But the last two games, he's been great in a back four. So, for what the system we want to play. So, yeah, Tarkowski and Cody are both 10 out of 10s for me. They're just exactly what this club needs. Like, we have a lot of centre-backs, but this is what I'm saying about good cover and just cover. Some of the cover at centre-back is not worth a carrot. Like, Holgate has always played well in a back three, but in a back four, I don't think he's good enough for us. I do like Godfrey, but he's young and experienced and has some, development to do. He needs to get better at a lot of things in this game, but hopefully these two centre-backs will help him. Mina will probably go in the summer because of his injury records. And
his contract's up in the summer, isn't it?
Yeah, and the less said about Michael Keane, the better. So I think come next summer, I think our four centre-backs will be Cody, Tarkowski, Godfrey, and probably one of Holgate or Jared Brantwaite, depending on how Brantwaite does. Because I don't think Lampard's got any time for Michael Keane. Has barely given him a minute since he's come in, since the season started. And combined with the two full-backs who were brought in January and the two centre-backs who were brought in the summer, we've got a whole new back four from 9 months ago, and for not a lot of money. And we've done a really good job there, I think.
Yeah, that is good business. We can't argue with that. So obviously 8 signs. We've got 4 down, 4 to go. The day after Cody, of course, it was the most expensive transfer of this window for us. If you include the add-ons, it'll come to 33 million for Amadou Onana, who's probably the most exotic signing we've made this summer because of, I think he's the only one to have not been either. Obviously, in Idrissa Gueye's case, it's an ex-Everton player in itself. You've got a couple of ex-Wolves players, a couple of ex-Burnley players, and James Garner from Man United. Everyone else was signed from Premier League teams with Premier League experience. He's the only one who comes in with no Premier League experience and a very young lad. He settled well. He's has a bit of a shaky start. His first 2 games, he was a bit ropey, but then he seems to be getting into his stride. Is he sharpish?
Yeah, he's got the physical, tools to be a top midfielder. Like, when he started in the Leeds match, I was quite surprised to see him in the number 6 role. I thought it was being nailed on that Tom Davis had started in the 6 role and Onana would be box to box. But the fact that he's been in the number 6 role shows his discipline as a player, even though he's very young. And in the Merseyside derby, some of his tackles and his interceptions.
He loves the battle, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a great pickup. He's going to be a very good player if he can obviously stay away from injuries. If they don't hamper him, he looks like he's going to be, quality. And I'd give him an 8 out of 10. The only reason it's not higher is because I'd like to start finding these players before Lille do and getting them for 7-8 million. Like the Moises Caicedo's like Brighton, 4.5 million. I'd want to start getting them before they start costing 30 million.
Yeah, we need to be a bit more smart like that. I mean, but it's nice to see we're actually bringing in decent profiles of players like this, though. Even if it has took a bit more money than we'd have liked,
Well, to be honest, if you're going to do that, with the young players, bring them in as their first big move, then you need a very stable, very secure squad for them to go into, which we haven't had yet for a while. So if we can get that settled now, then we can start doing that. But imagine throwing imagine throwing Onana before he went to Lille into our squad last year and all the chaos and the lack of leadership and lack of structure would have been disastrous for him. But now he's being brought in. It's like, okay, well, I've got a settled, defence behind me more or less by, the injury early in the season. But I've got 2 established centre-backs, 2 young full-backs. I've got Iwobi next to me. I've got Tom Davis, who's been around forever. Idrissa Gueye is coming in to help as well. And I've got basically a front 3 that picks itself when it's all fit. So he can just go in the team. And if he has to come out the team, the whole team, it's not like you have to dismantle the whole lineup because he's not in it. He can go in and out as and when, because there's going to be times when he gets taken out this season because he is only very young. But the pressure cooker of last season wouldn't have suited him. So hopefully, if we can stick with this structure, then in the future we can start getting them earlier, getting them for cheaper, and not having to pay over the top for them like we did.
Yeah, I think Onana, regardless of the fee, is looking like a good purchase. I think it's
Yeah,
safe to say.
yeah,
What would you give him?
8 out of 10. The only minus point is the fee because we've paid decent money for a player. In future I'd like to get before he costs that much.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Let's try and be a bit smarter if we can. Take the Brighton route where you've got to be really smart with your scouting, but hopefully we'll get there eventually and see sense. Hopefully we're on that way now. We might see the results in a few years, but obviously that remains to be seen for the time being. But definitely good business with Onana. And you talk about like coming into a very settled side and the stability of and being sort of a bit more free to maybe make the mistakes and go in and out of the team, like you say. Who better to have us like to have behind you and cover them than Idrissa Gana Gueye? We've just obviously just brought back for 2 million from Paris. Obviously, we bought him for 8 from Villa or 7 million. Sold him on to Paris for 30 million, and 3 years later we bought him back for 2 million. Granted, he's 33 now, but or 32, but he came back in obviously the Merseyside derby, just gone, and he came in and looked like he'd never been away. It was a really, really strong performance, the kind we did come to expect from him in his first spell. And yet, like I say, for the likes of Banana, it's like such a common influence to have that kind of protection behind you in your midfield.
Yeah, and just Gay is another one who I know you think I'm being too generous, but he's 10 out of 10 for me because the 3 10 out of 10s were the two centre backs who were effectively free. Well, Cody next summer, and then Gay, who is effectively free because £2 million is that won't even be that'll go to PSG. We will use that to pay off Garner's contract, and effectively we're getting him for what it would cost if we got him for free. Because if he was a free agent, we give him a signing on bonus probably more than that. And yes, he's 33 and whatever. He hasn't got a long career left ahead of him. But we know all about this player. We had him for years, and we know that he has a huge effect on every other player he plays with in the team. He allows other players to look better because they get to play a more adventurous game because they've got the security of having in the team. He made Andre Gomez look like a Premier League footballer. We adored Andre Gomez, and then the second Idrissa Gueye wasn't next to him, it became very apparent to most of us. I know there was a few outliers who saw it before that, but most of us saw through him and thought actually he's got nothing about him, Gomez. He's just all smoke and mirrors. And if Idrissa Gueye coming in now, along with those two centre backs, I think could be it could be a guarantee of safety because they're so reliable and so defensively strong that we will not ship the goals that the teams who go down are going to
or a better way of putting it is we won't ship the goals that we shipped last season.
Yeah, and not by a long shot. And I think even without Idrissa Gueye, who's only just come in, the two centre backs have already had that effect. Like, okay, we haven't won a match yet. We've not chipped loads of goals. Like
We're actually the third least conceded, aren't we?
Yeah. Like the third best defensive record so far. Now, that won't last till the end of the season, but put Idrissa Gueye in there as well. And if him and the two centre backs stay fit all season, I think we'll be one of the stronger defensive units in the league because that wealth of experience and just defensive strength is going to go a long way. So yeah, older player, but we got him for effectively free, and we know exactly what he brings. And he's not just what he brings himself; it's how much he'll make other players better. The fullbacks will look a lot better. The other centre midfielders are going to look a lot better with him in the team. Everything. I was so excited when I saw we were getting him back because not because he'll make us a force in the league, but he's just such. He sets your mind at ease, or at least he does for me. He made me feel a lot more confident about our position and our status in the Premier League by having a player like that.
Definitely. I was. So, what would you give him out of 10?
Then,
It's the confidence that you can say that word as well, because of he was
yeah,
probably a 9 out of 10 most weeks when he was here the first time.
yeah, he's just got such a massive effect on the team and the rest of the players. Like he improves every team he goes into, every 11. So the two centre backs and him are the 3 10s, and you think there's no negative to them. Like, well, they're all a little bit older. You're getting them all for effectively free, and then when we pay for Conor Cody next summer, it's not going to be that big a fee. And they are, considering the weaknesses this squad had in the soft centre and the lack of leadership and lack of resilience, and the fact that we'd ship goals very easily from set pieces as well, and we'd ship one and then another one would follow and another two would follow very quickly because the team would just collapse. These three players will go a long way to stopping that happening.
Definitely. Just two more players, obviously, to get through. We had Garner now for the other Garner. James Garner came in from Manchester United. Initial like 8 million, rising to 15. Um, Largely an unknown quantity, this one, because I mean he's obviously done well in the Championship, but we get to see him perform in the Premier League. Didn't play in the derby at all. So what can we expect from James Garner?
Honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know. I haven't
Me
watched
neither,
James
mate.
Garner.
Me neither.
I didn't watch him at Forest. I mean, I did when they were in the FA Cup because they were the games that were televised and higher profile. You speak to Norwich fans, not Norwich, Watford, sorry, fans from his loan spell there a couple of years ago. They all said he was crap. They just didn't think he was good. Which is fair enough.
Who said that?
Forest, well, if Twitter Watford fans, but they're not lying. Like they were saying it before he was linked with us. I remember it, but he may have been crap then. But then you speak to the Forest fans, and they all think he was excellent. And that I've got a couple of mates who are big United fans, and they were mortified when it came out that they were selling him because they wanted him over Scott McTominay in their midfield. And I asked a mate of mine who's a Man United season ticket holder, and I was like, "What are we getting from James Garner?" He said he will run for days and he's got loads of energy. And I was like, "Good, that's good. That's what Everton players should have. Crowd takes the players like that." I said, "And amazing set pieces." He says he'll score free kicks, and I was like, "That will stick out a mile in our team." So if that bears out to be true, could be a good signing. And along the likes of, we've obviously got the experienced players which I've raved about, but we're obviously also trying to bring in some young players who we can, build the future team around going into the new stadium. The Dwight McNeils, the James Garners, like these aren't super exciting. They're going to set the league alight players, but they're forming the foundation of the squad going forward. We're getting rid of the Andre Gomez's and the players like that, and we'll get rid of the Rondons and stuff, and we'll have a group of less expensive, younger, hungrier players. And whether this counts for much, Northwestern players, because he's from Birkenhead, James Garner, Dwight McNeil's from Stockport, I think, Greater Manchester area. So relatively, in football terms, local lads who want to do well in their careers and aren't going to be like hankering for moves away to go back home, like sometimes London players do. And they'll obviously look to establish good careers for themselves at Everton, and that's what you want to build a team out of. You don't want a team of like a squad of prima donnas who are just here for big wages, who don't really care when the going gets tough, because we saw what damage that can do last season and we were bailed out by the few players who cared.
Definitely. So, yeah, well, James Garner, obviously, we haven't seen him play yet, but for now, what would you give him as a transfer rating?
Same as Vinagre, because I've not seen him. I'm just going to give him a 6 out of 10. He could be a 10, he could be a 1. I don't know. So I'm just going to go
I
dead
know
safe.
very little myself.
So I think it's the right idea for the transfer. We've addressed with the older players some emergency positions that we needed to fill with players who improve us now. But Garner and McNeil two players who were for the future, and Garner's a very inexpensive, deal, but with the way it's been structured and what have you. So yeah, if that's the idea, we're going to build a younger squad with some key experienced players, and the young players want to make their careers at Everton, then belter. That's what we should be doing.
I'm right that there's no buyback clause.
No, that was mentioned by Fabrizio Romano, but every other single journalist sourced to Man United and Everton both said no. They've got a sell on of the
Sell
percentage
on fee, percent,
if
like
we sell
20% or something.
But we sell him on if he absolutely smashes it and gets in the England squad and all that, and then bigger teams come in for him, then we sell him for good money. Then they're going to get a cut of that. But that was the same with Watford and Richarlison. That's part of the course. That whenever you take a young player, any club with any brains will try and insert those clauses in, and we've accepted it because we needed the um, to have less pain on the front end of the deal. We needed to pay less now, but pay more if we sell them down the line, and that's the position we're in, to be honest.
But it was a generally good business, I'd say. Ticked out with tens, to
Yeah,
be fair. And then after the final signing, Neil Mopay from Brighton, uh, 12 to 15 million, I think the transfer was. He's one of those. I think it's not a glamorous signing, but I think he's a pretty solid player, solid, respectable Premier League player, isn't he?
yeah. This is the one I'm going to be the most down on because I'm not really the biggest fan of Mopay. Not because I dislike him or anything. He did in the grand scheme of things in wider football context. He didn't cost a lot. Like that's not like what was it, 12 to 15 million pounds. When you see what most players go for now, that's not a big transfer. And but my gripe is that he wasn't a prolific goal scorer. And I don't mean prolific, he didn't score 20 goals. I mean, like he could have got twice as much as he did at Brighton, because Brighton are a very attacking, very progressive team who create a lot of chances. We're not. We're currently not, and we haven't been for a long time. So I would only say it may have just been a case of the timing of the window, the personality they wanted to add into the squad, um, and the fact that there's probably no one, there could have been no one better for that price point in the market. So they thought, you know what, he's the best we can get for that money, and he will be better than what we're dealing with at the minute, which is nobody outside of Calvert Lewin. But I didn't see that sign and think, oh yeah, he's class, he's going to improve us. But I'm open to being proved wrong, because the only thing I will say in his favour is he's got that snide in him. He's got that shithousery that people like in their players. Like if he can harness that, then fans will love him and I'll love him. But I've raved over most of the transfers. This is the only one where I was a bit like, I would have liked to have seen who else was available, and if there was anyone better, I'll probably be disappointed.
Mm. But yeah, so what would you rate Mopay out of 10?
Uh, Probably another six, and the other two were sixes by default because I didn't know, not much else I could say about them. This one's a six based on knowing about them. So this is like this is a worse six than the other sixes, if you like.
This is a middle of the road signing, and that's why you've given it a middle of the road rating, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm open to being convinced otherwise. I don't think I mean, sometimes I'm very bullish in my opinions that are like, no, I think I'm right. This one, I could easily be proved wrong, and I think I'm just going off what he did at Brighton. That might have no bearing on what he did at Everton, but from what he did at Brighton, I was like, oh, he's very wasteful, and he's not going to get anywhere near as many chances here as he did there. It um, might not be a good signing, but you've got to always factor in who else is available, the time in the window, and how much he costs, because it's not a lot. People think that 20 million is the new 6 million from 10 years ago. Like if you'd have bought a striker for 6 million, in fact, he wasn't even 20, was he? He was 15. If you'd have bought a striker for 5 million in 2010, you wouldn't have expected great things from him. You'd have just said, okay, that's a good squad player. But now in the age where, good players all go for 50 to 60, getting a player for 12 to 15 is not a lot.
not at all. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there anyway. They're all our incoming transfers. Weighing it up along with obviously the players who we sold and maybe the players who we missed out on. What would you rate this whole transfer window out of 10?
I'd rate it an 8. I think we could have done with another attacking option, and I think that the club agrees. I think they were after one towards the end of the window, but the right one didn't come about. I think we were forced to sell Richarlison because of the mismanagement of the club. I don't think people should forget that. Um, but we used that money effectively to make changes in the areas of the squad that needed changing. The core of the team, the centre backs, the centre midfielders. You'll notice we didn't. I don't think we bought other than Dwight Mcneil. I don't think we bought. Yeah, we bought one wide player, one attacking player, and they were both um, quite inexpensive. Whereas most of the numbers were like we bought two centre backs, we bought three centre midfielders. Like the Lampard and Thelwell have clearly identified that the spine of this team is where the problems are. That the fullbacks are all right. Tamari Gray, Anthony Gordon are okay. Calvert-Lewin's your striker, but there's just a soft underbelly, and that's what they've addressed. And I think that was the right thing to do. And I
Yeah,
was
definitely.
I was very interested in some of the players who were linked with towards the end, like the Chukwuezes and Ben Brereton and Diaz. And I just think either financially the right transfer didn't come up, or the player they wanted didn't come up, and they've kept their powder dry rather than panic and thought, well, we can always hopefully go back for a player like that if we need it, and it's probably sensible from the club as well. The club this summer seemed to have, well, on the recruitment side of things, no, not in the big picture things. I'm yet to be convinced of that, but on the recruitment side of things, they seem to have learned their lesson a little bit, being a little bit more sensible by who they've brought in, who they've tried to get out, and yeah, an 8 out of 10. I think it would have been a 10 out of 10 from where we started the summer and where we ended last season if we'd have got one more attacking option, but whatever.
Yeah, but I think an 8 out of 10. I think none of us could have expected it to be as positive as that.
No, well, to be honest, earlier in the summer I did a video with Owen, and it was so bleak at the time, and the reports coming out of the club and the financial situation where would you take Ross Barkley? And me and Owen said yeah, because the thinking was
I was on the
that,
show, I think, with you, and
yeah,
we all just accepted it.
couldn't remember whether it was you or whether it was just me and Owen, but basically we said yeah because the feeling at the time was we are so knackered financially that we're not going to be able to bring anyone in. So it's a case of Barkley and other types of free transfers like that, or nobody. And I thought, well, when you've not got Onana and Garner and whoever, all the others, all the other Arners, when you've not got all these in the door yet, you just think, well, we can't go into this season and be relying on, the same players as last season. So, if it's Barkley or no one, I said, yeah, it'll have to be Barkley because we can't just roll with the same team. But we've thankfully, not been that bad. The Sky money came in, as you put it, or whatever.
That's
We
lots of
went
money.
bought fresh players, some old, some young, and have really flipped the squad. Like the Merseyside derby, the previous Goodison derby, which was in December, so only like 10 months ago. If not 9.5 months ago, there was only two players on the pitch who started that game, which was Pickford and Damari Gray. Everyone else had been changed. Now they weren't all new signings, Iwobi and Davies played and all that, but it's a completely new looking team with a new chemistry, like a new sort
New
of
sort of like
new
setup in it.
formula. Like they've tweaked the formula. A lot of it's the same ingredients, but the recipe is different. So the Iwobi now is not the Iwobi of a year ago playing right wing back and or being on the bench, and he's made Tom Davies looks better in the more recent games. We have not become a great side overnight, but we are a much better team, a much more solid and structured team than we were, and that transfer window is a massive part of it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll leave it at that anyway. Let us know your opinions. Thanks for tuning in. Drop us a comment, give this video a like and subscribe. Obviously, give your ratings for all the players we've been through and the transfer window as a whole. So let us know your opinions on all the ratings and give us your ratings in the comments. Give this video a like and, of course, subscribe for more content. Till next time, guys. Thanks for watching on the Soffy Blues.